Let's open our exploration of artificial intelligence and how perhaps it clashes with humanism by watching a video from one of the most senior leaders at OpenAI, Mira Murati.
I think it's really going to be a collaborative tool, especially in the creative spaces, where
I do too.
yeah, more people will become more
There's
creative.
some fear.
Some creative jobs maybe will go away, but maybe they shouldn't have been there in the first place. If the content that comes out of it is not very high quality, but I really believe that using it as a tool for education, creativity will expand our intelligence and creativity and imagination.
All right, so where to start? Let's define some basic parameters first. I think that anybody that is dogmatic in either direction about artificial intelligence, so people that think that it is going to be the greatest thing ever and it's going to save humanity, or on the other extreme, people that think that it's going to be the worst thing ever and it's going to ruin humanity, I think both of those views are a little bit too self-assured. We don't know what's going to happen with artificial intelligence. We don't know how much the hype is going to turn into fruition versus going to fizzle out. I do think it's fairly safe to say that artificial intelligence is going to be a very powerful tool. And like all powerful tools, it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. I think about artificial intelligence as having machines, robots, computers, essentially do the work that humans used to do, or that perhaps at times we thought that only humans could do. So a very basic example is a calculator. A calculator is artificial intelligence. We used to have to do math in our minds and perhaps by hand for long equations, and now we can enter them into a calculator and the calculator gives us an answer. This new wave of artificial intelligence, the one that Mira Murati is speaking about, people are speculating that is going to have such a high level of flexibility and a high level of intelligence that not only will it be able to do very basic rational functions, but as she points out, it is going to be creative. We've already seen this with so many of the image generators and the text generators. We have AI creating quote unquote art. We have AI writing fiction works, so on and so forth. And I want to be really cognizant of not getting into is this good or bad, it just is. The other main term that is worth defining at the outset is humanism. And humanism is a philosophy of life or general belief system that says that key to a good, fulfilling life is getting the most out of our humanity, of expressing our unique potential as human beings that can think and reason and that can feel deeply and that can use that thinking and feeling to create things that elicit thoughts and feelings in other people. One of my favorite definitions of art comes from Tolstoy, and he essentially says it's something that creates an emotional contagion. So I view a sculpture and I feel something deep in my body. It might be the same thing the artist was feeling when they made the sculpture. It might be something totally different, but it elicits a feeling. And when one human creates a work that elicits a feeling in another, that is core to humanism. And a humanist would say that that's something that's really special about us. That's something that is so highly fulfilling and gives us all of this good, rich enjoyment, texture, and base level meaning in life. A concern that I have with artificial intelligence is that if it is run to its nth degree extreme, and if it begins to replace so many creative jobs, that we lose out on a lot of what makes us human and a lot of what makes life worth living. Even if artificial intelligence can produce such brilliant work that it is on the same quality or better than humans, when it comes to things that are more creative, coming up with an idea for a business, writing a book, writing a song, creating art, composing poetry, I think that we risk losing out on the process of creating and struggling to make those things, which is where all the value lies. So to take what might seem a little bit theoretical and esoteric and try to put it into really simple terms. Imagine that I gave you a button and you could press that button, and by pressing that button, you could compose the greatest ever song. And that song would win all the Grammy Awards because it would be the greatest song that anybody's ever heard. And all you have to do is press that button and the song spits out and you win all the awards. Would you feel great about winning all those awards? Would that fulfill you for a day, a week, a year, a decade? Would that create something in your life that is a big project that takes a lot of time that you work on day in and day out? Of course not. Whereas if you had to struggle to learn music, to learn instruments, to fail over and over and over again on the way to composing something, forget winning a Grammy, that is just a good song, most people, I'd argue 99.99% of people would find that much more fulfilling than a magic button that spits out the best song ever. So even if AI gets to a level where it spits out the best song ever, I still don't think that ultimately that's good for humanity. Because again, so much of what makes life worth living is in the process of creation, is in the messiness. Messiness, that's another really important thing to discuss. In a super efficient, highly optimized artificial intelligence world, we're going to have a lot of perfection. And we already see this with some AI art, right? No doubt about it. Some of what AI is creating is absolutely astonishing, that you can feed this machine a prompt and it will spit out these images. But they kind of start to look the same. There's like a veneer or a gloss about them. Some might even call it an approaching perfection. The symmetry is perfect. The lines are perfect. The colors are mathematically engineered to be perfect. And if we see that at first, we might be blown away. But imagine if everything starts to look like that. And suddenly, what was nearing perfect art essentially becomes a commodity. Well, then it's no longer art because it's not going to elicit that feeling in us. If anything, it will dull us because everything will look the same. A big part of what makes art and creative pursuits interesting is that they are different and that they have flaws and that no two things are going to be exactly alike. That's what makes it different is the witness, is the observer, the receiver of art. And then, of course, for the creator of art, as I touched on, it's the actual process of creating that's beautiful. I want to share a couple other quotes. These come from the science fiction writer Ted Chiang, who's done phenomenal writing and work thinking about these problems that when he first started writing his books 2 decades ago were science fiction problems that are now becoming reality. So Ted Chiang says, the task that generative artificial intelligence has been most successful at is lowering our expectations, both of the things we read and of ourselves when we write anything for others to read. It is fundamentally dehumanizing because it treats us as less than we are, creators and apprehenders of meaning. It reduces the amount of intention in the world. It reduces the amount of intention in the world. That is the difference between feeding something 10 prompts, between pressing a button, between saying, hey, make me a song in the style of Taylor Swift meets Brandy Carlisle meets Zach Bryan, versus actually going through the messy process yourself to figure out what would that sound like? Would it sound good? How would I even make that? What is the actual intention behind this? Right? Giving something 10 prompts or inputting something a couple of ideas, that is not the same kind of deep, bodily felt intention that leads to humanistic art created by humans. Another quote from Ted Chiang, this is from the same piece that he wrote for The New Yorker. He says, we are all products of what has come before us, but it's by living our lives in interaction with others that we bring meaning into the world. That is something that an autocomplete algorithm can never do, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. All right? That is something that an autocomplete algorithm can never do, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We create meaning by living our lives in interactions with others. Now, contrast Ted Chiang's very humanistic view to a recent quote from the CEO of the dating app Bumble, who said that a wonderful future, and a future that she thinks is around the corner, is everybody on this dating app will have an artificial intelligence. She called them concierges. And the various AI bots will date each other. So you don't have to go through the messiness of dating another human. And AI bots will date each other, and because they can do this at the level that only a optimized machine can do it, you could date potentially thousands of people in a day. Your AI bot would date their bot, and then it would give you the match. Now, some would argue that this is already what's happening on these apps, right? They already have algorithms and they're already matching. But what's fascinating is at a time that people are really excited at these companies about these technologies, there's been a bevy of, I don't want to say outrage, but people are getting really frustrated with the way that dating apps are working. I mean, they're failing people. Some of it is just basic incentive, right? Like, it's not in the incentive of a dating app for you to be happy because then you're off the app. But people miss out on the messiness of going to a bar and meeting someone, or going to a volleyball game, or a football game, or a dance hall, or a cafe, and asking someone out. Why? What do we miss about that? There's an energy. There's a thrill to it. The psychologist Esther Perel would call it the eroticism, which isn't just about sex. It's also about the kind of energy that comes when, as Ted Chiang said, you get the messiness of humans living in close proximity together, creating meaning together. And I fear that the more that we outsource this to machines, the more we become alienated from our own lives, right? The most direct experience of meaning in a humanistic framework is when we do essential human things, when we create out of our essential humanness, and when we connect with others that way. And whatever you put in between you, whenever there is a mediating force, that causes alienation. That by definition separates you from the experience. So if you think about what are the most fulfilling experiences that you've had in your life, perhaps it is writing a song. Perhaps it is writing a book. Perhaps it is making love to someone. Perhaps it is playing a sport. Perhaps it is reading poetry in a hard copy book in a way that makes you cry. Perhaps it's being in the kitchen and cooking something and just putting your all into this thing. And the outcome might not be perfect, but you know that you did it. What do all of these experiences have in common? It's you directly with the thing. There's nothing in between you and the ingredients, nothing between you and your lover, nothing between you and the other team or the hoop on the basketball court, nothing between you and the sketch pad. What happens when we insert machines, even if it makes it better, that's going to optimize it so you find the perfect lover, or that you just press 6 buttons and then the food comes out perfectly, but you're alienated from the process of creating it. And again, it's like that Grammy button. You know, maybe that would be novel for a couple weeks, but if everything in life becomes hit a Grammy button and get this perfect outcome, it's just not going to be a life worth living, right? We're going to be living in some version of Brave New World. And I don't think that any of us want to be living in that version of Brave New World. Now, I want to honor what I said at the outset. I am not here to say that artificial intelligence is bad. My last book, it's literally called Master of Frickin' Change, right? So like things change. And in the book, I talk about how futile it is to resist change. And it would be dumb to resist the change of artificial intelligence. Here's why. There are areas where artificial intelligence will be absolutely, or at least has the potential to be absolutely awesome and change humanity for the better. First thing that comes to mind, biomedical diseases such as cancer that have a genomic basis. Part of the reason that we haven't made that much progress towards thorny diseases like cancer or other diseases that have large genetic components is because the number of permutations that creates a disease like that, it's just infinite. It is way too much for the human brain to handle, and it's way too much for our current models to handle well. If artificial intelligence can take that to the next level and can start to solve cancer or ALS or dementia with Lewy bodies or Parkinson's, that would be a wonderful use of artificial intelligence. If there are engineering problems that, again, because there are so many different variables, no one team of humans could run them in a lifetime, and a computer could run all those variables and restrict the range to give us something to work with, that would be another phenomenal use of artificial intelligence. So I just want to be clear that this isn't good or bad. This is about taking a powerful tool and thinking about where is it going to add meaning and value to our lives, and where might it detract from meaning and value to our lives. And I hope that policymakers are doing that. I hope that people like Mira Murati are watching this video and it's making them think about how do they want to design these tools. But I also think it's important and imperative for us at the individual level to think about, as we get tools that have increasing power, for what areas of our life do we want to use them? And for what areas of our life do we want to take a more humanistic approach and protect the messiness? So in my own life, I have not used a single artificial intelligence prompt machine, I don't even know what it's called because I haven't used it, to generate information for my writing. And many writers have, and I'm not judging, right? And what a lot of writers will say is it gives you a good first draft, it gives you some ideas to run with, so on and so forth. But for me, it's the act of sitting there with 9 notepads and 40 books with sticky notes in them, and arranging and rearranging and spending months going through that, the messiness that maybe at the end produces the same outline that AI could give me, but I don't want to lose that. Because the thrill that I get from seeing ideas connect in my own mind, that's why I love writing. That's what makes writing so special to me. And I think that's also what makes my books half decent. I think that if a computer were to generate the start of a book for me, I don't think that book would be as good because I wouldn't have gone through the messiness, through the friction of having to learn for myself what makes sense and what doesn't. So, internal and external, the outcome of the creative process is better if we humans are there. There could be a short-term blip where AI produces these things that are quote-unquote perfect, and for a year maybe we'll be like, oh, this is amazing, but then everything's going to look the same, and then it's no longer amazing, it's no longer art, it's no longer humanistic, because humans are flawed and humans have imperfection, and a part of why creative pursuits move us is because they encompass those flaws and imperfections. They make us feel seen, they help us to see others, and machines simply cannot do that. So be sure that you think about how will I use these tools and make sure that they don't use me, and how will I use these tools to generate value in my life and not detract from what gives life its value and meaning.